Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wide Open with Ashlyn Harris. I am so excited to have Bobby Berk on the show this week.
Hi.
Welcome to Wide Open.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I like to introduce all my guests. So for those who don't know Bobby, Emmy-winning TV host on Queer Eye.
Yeah.
Design guru. The one that is in all of our living rooms for 8 years, 8 seasons.
God, yeah, I was there. Let's see, Queer Eye, including the Japan season, it was 9 seasons.
9 seasons.
Like almost 8 years. Yeah, long time.
You just always made me cry beautiful puppy dog tears.
Good. That my evil plan was working.
Well, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good.
How's life?
Life is great. You know, except for the last 2 hot days we had. LA weather is perfect.
Well,
We're surrounded by great people.
It's always nice to see you, share space with you. You're always one of my favorite humans and my favorite queer date to every queer event. We
right.
usually somehow manage to be at the same table.
I know.
It's my favorite.
And I never even ask for that.
No.
Because
know.
I don't like to be that person that asks for accommodations of, I need to be by this person or this person. I'm just like, whatever. I can sit with anybody. But I love that, like, the industry just knows.
They know.
Yeah, like let's put them together.
They fuck with each other. We're going to. Look at us. We're like literally ending each other's sentences now. No, you're never getting rid of me.
Right.
But so I am so happy to have you on. You have such a beautiful story, incredible story, that like so many of us have been able to get to know you through television. But the weird part is we are all so much more than what we do. Mm-hmm. So I would love to peel some of the layers back and really start from the beginning. You were raised in a rural area in Missouri.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honey.
Can I ask, does your shirt say Carol?
Hell yeah, it does.
It's funny because my phone is called Carol. I have my name in there as Carol because back in the day when anybody could airdrop you anything, fans on the plane and stuff would see my phone and I would get some of the raunchiest pictures sometimes.
I get that on the subway.
So I just changed the name of my phone to Carol because no one would think that was my phone. Yeah, you could change because a lot of people also just leave it as iPhone. So when you open up to airdrop somebody, there's like 20 iPhones. And I'm like, well, that's annoying. I don't want to be that person. So I'm like, I'll just change it to Carol.
I need Carol. I get literally dick pics on the subway in New York.
But now you can change it to where only your contacts can send you stuff.
I haven't touched anything since. Literally haven't touched anything.
When they first came out with AirDrop, it was just open to anybody, and I would just be like, "Oh my god!"
I get that. I didn't
ask for that
so often on. I don't think I think mine's completely public. Then
must be.
And it's my name. I've never changed it.
Yeah,
they were like, this little queer woman. I'm going to send her a dick pic.
I'll change her. I'll change her. This is going to change her.
I love it. I love that this all just connected us to
I know. I just looked down.
Carol.
I was like, wait, Carol.
You know what? This is my vintage shopping. I love a good, lesbian bowling shirt.
I feel like that was kind of inspired. What inspired me wearing this one, it's kind of like a
look
bowling
great.
shirt as well.
So chic.
But back to like Missouri.
Yes. Tell me everything. How did life start for you in this small little town?
I started, at birth. No, I actually started at birth in Texas. Beginning. I ended up in Missouri like 3 days later. But I went to a tiny little small town. The town we lived in at the time was 600 people. And we lived out in the country, so we didn't even live in the city. It was such a small rural area that we still had a party line. Do you know what a party line is? Even you're probably too young. It's when like multiple homes share the same phone number because there's not enough wires. I don't know.
I'm learning in real time, honey.
And then I went to a private Christian school through elementary, and it was like a one-room, like Laura House on the Prairie-esque school, like 1st through 12th grade was all in one room.
Wow.
I was the only kid in my class, my only kid in my grade.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. It really helped developing those people skills.
Well, clearly.
No, it didn't, honestly. Because then when I was in middle school, I begged and pleaded my parents to send me to public school. And I realized when I got there, I was like a very awkward kid because I didn't have anybody else my age in elementary. So I never really learned how to interact with other kids. I think that still messes with me to this day. Like not getting that early elementary school development of how you interact with other humans. You know, again, there was other people in the school, but I think the school had a total of maybe like 16 kids in it. And everyone was either quite a bit younger than me or quite a bit older than me. Yeah.
Okay, so well, of course, these are formative years that clearly shaped you, and then you end up moving, you know, to what, Denver, and then to New York City at such an early age. I mean, that had to be like whiplash, shock.
So I left home at 15. And I went to the big city of Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
Ooh. Yeah, it was like 100,000 people. It was huge. And then at 17, one day I kind of had like a nervous breakdown almost. I was driving a girlfriend to work, and the street we normally went down was blocked with construction. So I like went to pull into this hospital parking lot to like cut through to go to another street, and like every exit in that parking lot was blocked. And I just brought my 1984 Buick Century to a halt. And I was like, this is my life. Every exit I try to take, everything I try to better my life with, I just run into roadblocks. I run into construction. And so I'm like, I've got to get out of Missouri. Like, I'm never going to do anything with my life if I don't get out of here. And so I called up a friend, the only person in the world I knew outside of Missouri, a friend of mine to this day. And I was like, I've got to get out of Missouri. And he's like, well, come to Denver. Come live by me. And I'm like, I don't have a job. I don't have a place to live. I don't have any money. Yeah. He's like, I'll work on the place to live. You work on the job and the money.
Wow.
So he calls me back 20 minutes later, and he's like, my college roommate has a spare bedroom. You can live with him until you find a place. I'm like, okay. And then I go to work, and I was one of my like 4 part-time jobs. I was at the body shop, a stock boy at the body shop. Oh my God. And not like cars, but like Satsuma lotion and stuff, that body shop. And so I went into work, and I was like, you know, I've got to get out of here. I've got to go to Denver, but I need a job. And so my manager came out like 20 minutes later, and she's like, okay. So I made some calls. You are now the assistant manager at the body shop at the airport in Denver. And I'm like, okay, great. So then I went home, and I'm like, I still don't have any money to move. And I looked, and I had this massive DVD collection. Don't ask how I got it.
Oh.
And I went to Hastings Music.
Books? Remember the books? The plastic books?
I went to Hastings Music, and I sold all of them, and I had made like $500, and I used that to go rent a U-Haul. And within 24 hours of having that breakdown in the parking lot, I was in a U-Haul on my way to Denver. Because I knew if I didn't do it, I would talk myself out of it. And so I'm like, I have to do this, or I'm never going to do it. And I remember coming right as I got into Denver, coming over the hill and seeing Denver spread out across this valley, and pulling over on the side of the road, and again, about having a breakdown, crying, going, what have I done? This is such a big city.
Yeah.
This is going to eat me alive. What was I thinking? And then, you know, fast forward 4 years later, I was like, this is such a small town. I have got to get out of here. I've got to go to New York City. And so that was Missouri to New York City. And then, you know, I was in New York City for 12 years, and that's where I met my husband. And we've been out here in LA now for 11 years, which is crazy. I've been out here almost as long as I was in New York.
Wow.
But yeah, that was my little bopping around journey.
And it's so incredible, because I think what most people really don't know about you is you are so self-made. And it's important to be able to share that with people who hit those roadblocks in life, who feel like, I have to have this traditional education, and I got to go to school, and I got to do all these things to be successful.
You know, while I was in New York, I started my own company, furniture company, retail. I first started online. And then as that became successful, I started opening up stores around the US, New York, Miami, Atlanta, and LA. And at one point I hired a CFO, because I'm like, I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I'm like, I don't have a business background. And, you know, again, you think that's what you need.
Yeah.
And he has an MBA in business, and a good friend of mine. And I always just kind of did what felt good, what I thought would work. And I would come up with these ideas, and he'd be like, no. And I'm like, let's do it. Let's try it. And one day he was like, you know, it's so annoying to me that these ideas you have that traditionally red flags and alarms to start going off in my head when you say these, because I have this business training and I have this roadmap of how you are to be a success in business. And more than half the things you do not compute to that roadmap. Yeah. And he's like, but I think one of the reasons why you're successful is you don't have those red flags and alarms going off in your mind going, this is how you do it. That's not how you do it. You just try things and you're not afraid to try things because you don't know what's right or wrong. You're just like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. Let's try it. If not, we'll pivot.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I think the key to your success is you don't have that traditional education. So for the people out there who think, oh, I can't be an entrepreneur, I can't do my own thing, I can't be a success because I either couldn't afford to go to college because our system in this country sucks, or it just life happened and education didn't.
Yeah.
Don't let that stop you. You can do it. I could do it. I'm a high school dropout.
You have a good intuition about you where you constantly were betting on yourself. And I think that's where people go wrong. I think we live in a culture and a society that we feel comparison is it.
Absolutely.
We fucking compare ourselves to everything, anything.
Especially people like you and I who are on a team.
Yeah.
Like all you do is compare yourself to team members.
Well, why are they getting that and I'm not, and this and that? Well, how are they? I should be better. I should be doing more. It is exhausting. And I think we lose the plot so often because we get caught up in constantly comparing ourselves, our life, our partner, where we're at and where we're going. And we lose sight of reality where we start to live through the lens of something else that's just not truth.
One of the things you have to learn in life, and it's been hard, but you have to learn in the law of abundance. There is enough success out there for everyone who wants it. One person's success, it's like pie, one person's success doesn't mean less success for you.
Exactly.
It's their success. Be happy for their success. Put that energy out there and that good energy will come back to you. Marginalized communities such as women, gays, people of color, we have all been taught there's one seat at the table. One. And so we are the least supportive people to each other because we feel like we have to compete for that one seat. And I think it's very important to realize, like, I forget who said this, but it was like, you know what? Nobody would give me a seat at the table. So I made my own table.
Hell yeah.
And that's what we have to do. Recently, there was a show I had created and many of the characters were gay and it was going very far. We were in very serious talks with a streamer, and then another gay show got announced and they freaked out. And they were like, oh no, it's too similar. And we're like, well, it's actually not at all. And they're like, it's gay,
gay
but
people.
It's not really similar. And they're like, oh, no, too similar. And so some of my colleagues that were working on it with me, like, refused to watch that show because they're angry. And not that show's fault at all.
Yeah.
It's the industry's fault. But I'm like, no, we need to watch it. We need to support it. Even if you don't watch it, turn it on. Give them the views, because when a gay show succeeds,
we all do.
We all do, because studios are like, oh, that gay show succeeded. Hey, let's greenlight some more. So let's not boycott our community's projects because we're upset that project maybe got picked over ours, or there's not enough room at the table. We need to create space for ourselves. And when our community is successful, it breeds more success for all of us, both in women and people of color and other marginalized communities like gay people. And I remember to this day, but especially when Queer Eye first came out, people were always like, oh, I'm sure like the gay community is just supporting you so much. And we're like, oh my God, no.
Yeah.
Like our community is the one that's the worst to us. Like the gay community did not support that show at all. They would constantly come for us. Like, we don't need this, blah, 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 blah. And again, I think it really came from a place of, I hate to use the word jealousy, but it kind of was, because they're jealous that we took that space when there's so little of it, but that just goes back to the statement I made earlier, where when one of us succeeds, it opens up more space for others of us, more of us to succeed.
And I think that's so important to say. And I say this often, and even my small little sports community, it's like we have to continue standing on the shoulders of each other and not on our necks.
Absolutely.
And it's just the harsh reality. And the show has been so successful, and it's really talk about acceptance and no judgment and really learning the inner workings of something so beautiful. A lot of people needed to see that, and a lot of people needed some sort of understanding, because there are places like rural Missouri. Some people go their whole fucking lifetime without meeting a gay person.
Yeah. Well, that they know of.
That they know. Well, that part's. Let me correct you.
Yeah.
But I'm curious when we like kind of peel back all these layers, and I was reading a lot on your bio and hearing you were adopted, as a mom who has adopted both of her kids, and being queer in a very small town where it's not accepted, and now building this insanely beautiful life for yourself. You're doing so much good in our community and in the world and in our space. How did you, with an identity like being adopted and being queer and all of these things, how did you pick design? How did it speak to you? How did it choose you?
As far as a career, I honestly kind of fell into it.
Okay.
But as a child, I remember when I was 5 or 6 years old, my mom had decorated my room in like all red. Red curtains, red bedspread, red rug, everything. And I was just like, I do not vibe with this. Like there was something about it. It just did not make me feel good. So like my aunt and grandma would send me, these little $20 checks for my birthday. And I remember using my birthday money to buy new decor for my bedroom. And I bought everything blue because I'm like, blue makes me feel better. And scientifically it is proven blue is a soothing, relaxing color. So even as a child, I understood the way your space can make you feel. But it was never something that I thought of as a career. We didn't have designers in the cornfields of Missouri. The only designers I was ever exposed to was Designing Women, that great TV show in the 80s. But it wasn't until, again, I left home at 15, no education. I was, working at restaurants. I was working at gas stations. I was working at the mall, retail. And I worked my way up in retail in a pretty decent career. I'm the youngest store manager in Express history. I wasn't even 18 yet. I couldn't even operate the trash compactor, but I was the manager of the store. And so I was doing well with that. And I got a job at a retail furniture company out in Denver called The Great Indoors. And it was this massive, everything you could need for your home. And I realized I really enjoyed that. And so although my career was retail, when I moved to New York, I searched out another retail furniture job. And that job was Restoration Hardware in New York. I was a visual manager there. And so after Restoration Hardware, I went to Bed Bath & Beyond. Horrible job.
Oh my gosh.
And then,
oh dear.
Yeah, I skipped around a little bit to some other retail furniture, but then I ended up at a company called Portico. And it was a nice high-end furniture boutique. And I started managing one of their stores, and then became a buyer, and then launched their e-commerce division, and became the creative director of the company.
Wow.
And then unfortunately the company was not managed very well, and it ended up going under. But at that point I was like, I can do this.
Yeah. And
so I took the database that I had built for them for their e-commerce division. And this was 2005. There wasn't many people selling anything online. But I registered Bobby Berk home, and I was like, let me try this. Maybe I'll sell a sofa or two while I look for another job. And I sold more than a few, and it did well. And it was I was one of the first companies selling furniture online, period. And so I opened up my own stores after that when it was doing well, because my biggest hurdle with online furniture was manufacturers didn't want to sell to me because I sold online. And they're like, online? No one's going to want to buy furniture online. That's crazy. Little did they know, fast forward 20 years later, that's the only place people will be buying it.
Exactly.
But so I had to open up brick and mortar stores to be taken seriously. So I did. And I I was a curator of pretty things. I wasn't a designer, but I would help customers decorate their homes. But I wasn't doing construction documents. I wasn't doing electrical plans. Again, I was picking out pretty things. But then in 2015, I got a call from Builder Magazine, and they were like, hey, we hired a PR firm to tell us who the most well-known millennial interior designer in the world was. And they said it was you.
Wow.
And in my mind, I was like, that's funny. I'm not an interior designer, but great. Okay, what can I do for you? And they were like, we are building the show homes for the International Builder Show with a builder in Las Vegas, and we want you to design these homes because they're all about what millennials are going to want in the next decade in their homes. And so they're like, can you do that? And in my mind, I was like, no, I don't, because again, it wasn't just picking up pretty things. Like it was construction documents, tile layouts, electrical plans, like needing to know CAD, none of which I knew. But of course I said, yes, of course I can do that.
We didn't have AI then either.
No, there was no AI in. But I got online, I got on YouTube, and I got on Google, and I manipulated floor plans in Photoshop instead of CAD. And I made it work, and I figured it out. And that was the same year we had decided to move to LA. So I moved here to LA. I hired one assistant to help me install these homes. That assistant now runs my design company. And 10 years later, he's still with me. And the houses were a success. And so that builder was like, hey, will you start designing homes for our communities across the country? And to this day, they're still my biggest client. I'm a spokesperson for their company now. They're the 4th or 5th largest builder in the US, TriPoint Homes. And that's how I got into design. Again, I kind of fell into it. It was a combination of...
Well, it wasn't by accident. You worked your ass off.
It did. I worked for years in my stores. I worked 7 days a week, 16-hour days, 363 days a year. It always frustrated me that I had to close on Thanksgiving and Christmas because my landlords were still making money, but I wasn't. So yeah, I worked my butt off, and I'm at the point in my life now where I still work hard, but I don't work nearly that hard. It's kind of nice.
Well, you've earned that right. And I'm curious, with this beautiful story that's not linear, that were a lot of dead ends, and there was probably a lot of heartache, and
I failed
when am
upwards.
when am I going to get my next paycheck? Am I going to be able to do this? Like, I'm sure there's so many questions, but I think as a creative myself, like so much of my work and what I do creatively is influenced by my story. I draw so much inspiration from it. Now, from your point of view, when you're designing these spaces for other people, do you bring yourself into these designs through your experience?
So for me, I feel my sole job as a designer doing someone's home is to make that home about them. So there are a lot of designers who will design in a very specific aesthetic because that is their aesthetic, and you can see it a mile away, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I feel like as a designer, it's your job to design for the client, not for yourself. So I do not.
Wow.
I do have a very specific aesthetic, and there are some clients who will come to me because they like that. But if they like that, that's also their aesthetic.
Yeah.
But I will never force my design philosophy outside of like function. I will force my design philosophy on people about function, because I think before your house is pretty, it needs to function properly. Because the prettiest of houses that don't function properly make for a dysfunctional family. So I will force that on them, but I won't force, if they want me to work in that awful purple credenza from Aunt Gertrude, I will.
You'll just bite your tongue?
Yeah.
I find that.
But we also try not to take clients who have a lot of stuff they already work in. They want to work in.
You have your book right at home, and you did discuss a lot about the connection between design and mental health.
Yeah,
I really want you to elaborate on that, because just like you said, it really does affect how families move or people function within the chaos.
Yeah, so my book, Right at Home, How Good Design is Good for the Mind, and it is literally all about mental health and design. And it's something that I had thought about for years, again, going back to when I was 5 years old, understanding that certain colors made me feel a certain way, some good, some bad. it's also something that I've had to learn as an adult, like chaos around you creates chaos in your mind. I have always had to keep a very tidy house because there's enough chaos in my mind. I don't need it around me. You know, I'm on the spectrum. I have ADD. I have to have things a certain way. And people who don't realize that, their lives can be quite chaotic. And I wanted to write a book about so many different things with the home and mental health. I mean, there's a chapter about the different temperatures of light, you know, from cool white light, like the ones that are on us right now, but this type of light is energizing.
Yeah.
The sun is technically white light, and it is the brightest white in the mornings. And our bodies, our species, every species on the planet has evolved to wake up to that bright white light because the sun is the brightest and the whitest in the morning. So in the morning when you wake up, it is very important to, if you don't have access to sunlight like that, it is important to have more of a bright white bulb like in your bathroom when you're getting ready in the morning, because your body naturally wakes up to that more. But in the evenings, what color is the sunset? It's more amber, right? And so in the evenings, it is more important to have a lower Kelvin number, like a 2,000 to 3,000 as opposed to a 6,000. In your home at night, because that helps your body, your circadian rhythm automatically start going, oh, hey, like it's time to go to bed. People who have problems sleeping, I always ask, I was like, do you dim your lights in the evening? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you know, around 8 o'clock, do you dim them a little bit? You bring down, they're like, no, I don't. I'm like, well, you are going into your room seconds after you've turned off bright lights and you are telling your body, go to sleep.
Yeah.
Your body's like, wait, you didn't prepare me. You didn't tell me this was happening.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me start producing melatonin. All right. Let's get ready. And you'll lay in bed for an hour or two, just wide awake because you didn't, just like if you have an electric car, you've got to precondition that battery sometimes to charge the best.
Yeah.
And so if you know you're going to charge it, you hit that precondition button and it starts preparing your battery. It's like, oh, I'm going to get a charge. Your body needs to do that for sleep too. And so again, lights, there's a whole chapter about color theory, about colors that are more soothing, colors that are more energizing. So like if you're in an office space, like colors that you should paint if you're wanting to be more energized. There's a whole chapter on organization. And again, chaos around you creates chaos in your mind. There's a chapter about designing for your kids. Let's see, there's a chapter about designing grief. You know, right as I was about to go on tour with this, my father passed, and I didn't realize that this chapter I was writing would be such a help to my mother. You know, it's because it's hard when you've been with somebody for literally decades, like my parents had, kind of changing your home up to where everything in your home doesn't remind you of them, to where you can start to heal and move on, but you don't want to forget them. You don't want to ever fully move on. So it's a fine balance between taking away the things that remind you of them because it feels good, but also taking away the things that remind you of them because it hurts every time you see them. And, you know, having that space in your house that is still for them, where you can go and you can remember them and you can have your moments, you can have your cries, but kind of making other parts of the home where there aren't just constant reminders.
Yeah.
So your little heart can heal.
But
it's all about the way it affects you.
And I think it is. There's so much truth to it because you and I share a very similar experience where, you know, I didn't come out until after college, like honestly, not very long ago. And I mean, I remember telling my dad I was gay, and my dad was like, "Sweetheart, I raised you." Like, I know, like, sweetheart. We all knew. And I'm like, well, I guess mom didn't.
You're like, could you have told me?
Yeah, Jesus, you would have saved a lot of fucking trauma and heartache. But my mom used to always want my room to be pink. It was always this pink, and you know me.
She probably did know. And
yeah.
She was like, I'm going to fix this with some pink.
Fix this right now. But it's...
You don't like pink? What?
I have a pink little princess daughter that I'm really learning to love it, but it's just not for me. And I remember like my mom was so sweet, and she would like do these like, you know, we didn't come from much money. So she would take like sponges and like do the white and sponge.
Yeah, my mom used to love sponge painting the house.
Sponge painting. It was like her favorite thing to do. And I'm like, This whole fucking room's pink. It is all pink.
My sister, my mom had decorated her room in holly hobby when she was little. And my sister is like tomboy, horses, cattle. Same. Yeah. She was not down with the holly hobby.
Oh my gosh.
I always thought at one point my sister would also be like, by the way,
hey, guess what?
Never has. Still waiting.
We're all waiting. I'm like, everyone now is like, I'm like, are you sure anyone's straight at this point? I'm like, well, are we all living this secret life? But I do find it interesting. I heard this and read this, that during the show, you know, it's a very, like, Queer Eye is fucking emotional.
Yeah.
It is, and I don't think audience understand how, as a queer person, that opens a lot of wounds going into homes like that, and discussing topics of like heartache, heaviness, and religion. And you spoke about how you had to process a lot going through the show because it does open wounds.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because I don't think most people understand the weight.
Yes, I mean, there were many episodes where I would go home afterwards and I would just cry.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of topics, whether it be religion or parents or siblings or anything to do with family, that I at that point hadn't really processed. Again, for most of my young adult life, I couldn't afford therapy. There weren't a lot of online options. There were nothing. You know, it was either you spent $200 for a session, which I, obviously didn't have. So there was a lot of things I had not processed before the show. And, there was mainly with religion, because growing up, religion was my life. I lived, eat, slept, breathed religion. I was at the church literally every day.
Wow.
And so when I lost that, I lost a part of who I thought I was, this identity that I had created for myself. And so for years, I didn't know who I was anymore. I was never really able to find that identity again. So going into these episodes where, like that one episode in season 2 where we're renovating a church. I wouldn't go in the church. I don't know if you've seen that episode. It was literally the town of Gay, Georgia.
Wow.
And it was this lovely, amazing, beautiful woman named Tammy, Mama Tammy. And my production crew told me we were renovating a community center because the very first lunch I had with the creator of the show and the producer when I got cast, they asked me, we just want to know, is there anything you don't want to do? Like, is there anything that would just be too much for you? And I was like, please just never ask me to go in a church.
Wow.
So they knew it would be a problem. And so they lied to me about it and said we were doing a community center. And granted, it was the community center next to the church.
Yeah.
But it was still the church.
It's the church.
So when we get to the church, we're getting a tour of the property, and we toured the community building that we're going into. And I went into that. It was fine. That was the space I needed to redo. And they're like, oh, let us go ahead and show you the sanctuary. And all the other guys went in, and I stopped at the front door, and the guy was like, oh, come on in. And I was like, I'm good. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. You guys go ahead. You're fine. I'm not walking in that space. And I got in so much trouble that day from the creator of the show. He was so mad at me. He thought I had ruined that episode. And it turned out to be one of the most powerful moments of the entire series, that to this day, I get DMs and people walking up to me on the street saying that was one of the most powerful moments of their life because it finally gave them permission to say no.
No.
This was traumatizing to me. This destroyed me. This broke my heart. I gave you my everything, and you turned your back on me simply because I am who I am. I don't have to pretend like that's not the case. I don't have to pretend like everything is okay. I can say this is where I draw the line, and religion is dead to me.
Yeah.
And it was, and I've so many people, because of course it's a show, and I still have to sometimes in the end act like everything's great when it's not. And so many people are like, "Oh, that show really healed you, didn't it?" And I was like, No. It didn't. Mama Tammy was lovely though. So in the end, I was like, I'll do whatever Mama Tammy asks, and I will come into that church and I will sing with her and I will give her a hug. But I was like, no. It did not heal me. I still feel the exact same way I did before.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And that is powerful. Where are you at now? How has that opened up healing, growth, space for other things? Like, do you feel like you're moving in a place, in a direction where you're betting on yourself again and being happy and complete?
Yeah, I think so. Especially as when you come out of a team, your identity becomes said team.
Yeah.
And, coming out of a very emotionally charged, emotionally draining, emotionally healing show for 9 seasons, it was hard, A, to make the decision to leave, but B, to find myself again as an individual. And I think I have. It's been fun. I took some time off, and I have a lot of new exciting things some have been announced, some haven't been announced yet. But yeah, I think I am moving in a great direction now.
I think we all go through it. I'm going through it in real time now, being a newly retired athlete and being a mom and all of these things. I'm not who I used to be. Yeah. What did that look like for you?
Again, as you know, as being a part of the team, being a part of the Fab Five.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I was. I was Bobby from the Fab Five. Every interview I did, every show I was on, I was introduced as Bobby from the Fab Five. And so for that being almost a decade, I would still find myself like Bobby from Queer Eye.
Yeah.
Like Bobby from the Fab Five. And I'm like, wait, no, not anymore. No,
yeah.
Not anymore. So, I had to start finding myself again as an identity separate from that, because that show was put first for so long. And the experience that our heroes would have was put first for so long. There was obviously, I think the world has figured out, it wasn't always a peachy place behind the scenes there. But that was to allow that to affect the experience our heroes had was never an option. So it was always just kind of handle it, deal with it, so finding myself after that was hard.
Yeah.
And
do you feel like you're on the right track?
I do.
Well, you look like it.
Yeah, thank you.
You have a beautiful spirit to you, and it's so infectious. I love spending time with you. I always ask this question on the show. What moment, like in your life and in this journey, both personally, professionally, have really split you wide open, that it really changed it all for you?
What moment?
Yeah, what moment in your life was like really defining moment?
I mean, as much as we've talked about finding myself outside of Queer Eye was an extremely defining moment for me. The original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was a defining moment for me to see 5 real life gay people, because back then the only gay person on television was Ellen, and that was very fresh and new.
Yeah.
I don't even think Elton John was out back then.
Wow.
So to see 5 gay guys on TV who were real, they weren't acting. They had real careers. They were a real success. That really was very inspiring for me to see that I too can succeed. Because growing up, once I came out, I was basically told I would never amount to anything. I would never be accepted. I would never be loved. And so to see those 5 guys prove all that wrong was inspiring to me. And so for me to be able to be on the same show that did that for me and do that for millions of other little queer kids around the world was a huge defining moment for me. It was kind of full circle. Like it was me being able to give back like the original guys did for me.
Now you're so forward facing. So many people recognize and know you. How has that impacted your life?
I mean, there are many, many, many positive things, as you know, about being a public figure.
Yeah.
but there are also a lot of negative things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try not to dwell on the negative things. Some of those negative things are being always recognized. People thinking they know who you are. People coming to judgments about you, about who you are, when they really don't know who you are. But my show has had such an impact on people. Whether if I'm just trying to get a coffee at a coffee shop, and in turn I'm there for 30 minutes holding somebody as they cry, telling me the story about how the show affected them or their sibling or their parents, or, you know, I got picked up from the airport once by a driver, and he was a white cisgendered male, probably in his 70s. And he proceeded, you know, again, I was in a rush. I, you know, had a long day. I did, you know, I had enough emotions of my own. I didn't need more. But he sat there and told me how his daughter was trans, and him and his wife didn't know how to react, didn't know how to support her, didn't know how to accept her. Just, it was so foreign to them. But watching Queer Eye healed that, brought them together, allowed them to look past what other people were telling them, and realize that they just needed to love their daughter, and that's all they needed to do. That's all she needed from them, was for them to love and support her, because she was strong enough to do other things on her own as long as she had that love and support. And so I get to hear all these amazing stories. So again, one of the cons is that sometimes when I really just want a coffee, I end up holding somebody as they cry. But one of the pros is I get to hold somebody while they cry and talk about how that show changed their life and changed their family's life, changed their kids' life, changed their siblings' life. So yeah, it's changed my life. And, you know, I can't always get to an airport. I have missed some flights.
Oh my God.
Because of that. I have learned now, sunglasses, earbuds, baseball cap. Sorry guys, but I do hear you. I just act like I don't because I'm running to my flight. I shouldn't have told on myself with that.
Listen, if you see Bobby in a hat, sunglasses, and ear pods, you probably wear the wires too, so you really let people know not to fuck with you.
Sometimes. But it's funny. I often won't even have anything on in them. I will just have noise cancellation. Because again, I'm on the spectrum. I need that noise cancellation just to block the world out. I have so many cheap crap pairs of headphones that I've had to buy at the airport because I've left mine at home, and I'm like, I can't get through the airport on time without that because people will stop me. But yeah, I'm forgetting what the question was. I think how the show has changed that. But yeah, it's definitely...
Yeah, it's difficult because people want fame and fortune. And I'm telling people, you don't want fame.
Well, here's the thing.
You don't fucking want fame.
I forget who sings the song, Bitch, I Said What I Said. I'd rather be famous instead. Is it... Who? Doja Cat. It's Doja.
There we go.
But I always hear that. I'm like,
no, you don't.
I'd rather be rich. I don't want to be famous. But here's the thing. Like, I feel like I hate to use the word celebrity. I hate to use the word public figure, but I have to use the word something. So I feel like as people in the public eye, like we are public figures, we're very lucky because there are a lot of things that we have access to. There are a lot of great things that happen to us because of that. And I feel like we owe the public who puts us in this position a certain amount of respect and a certain amount of willingness to give back to them, meaning that time in the coffee shop when I'm giving back to this person who has loved and supported me through the TV screen for years, I feel that we owe them that. And, you know, there is a new generation of celebs as of recently who don't feel that way, who are very publicly, my privacy, my personal time, this, me, you know, and I'm like, well, if it's that hard to be famous, don't. Go away. Go away. These are people who are spending their time, their money, their emotions to make us who we are, and to dismiss them, to say, you owe me my space. Within reason, yes. There's a level of respect that still needs to be there. But to be like, no, I'm not. I don't know.
Just like too above.
I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
I agree. I agree. And you know, who else says this really well? It was Billie Jean King when I got to sit down with her, she says, you know, she's like, I always knew when I stepped on the court that all of these people were paying to watch me.
Yeah.
And they had to make hard choices in their life to choose that moment.
Yes.
And I am not above any fucking person there. And I think sometimes we forget it because who's paying for this beautiful life you've created?
Yeah.
It's the people who have shown up over and over and over again, who have supported you.
And to not show up for them, I think it's just it says exactly who you are.
Exactly.
And that is not the person I want to be.
And with that, I'm going to ask you the last question because I could keep you here all day. I love you. If you could design a safe space for your younger self now, if you could go back in time, what would that look like for you? That little boy from rural Missouri.
I mean, I think if I could redesign a safe space for me, I think it would be a much more diverse space.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in an incredibly undiverse world. And I think that's why I immerse myself in so much diversity now. I was posting pictures earlier today, and I'm like, in all these photos, I'm like, I'm the only white person in this photo, and I love it. You know, I was like, it's always funny to me. Like, I went from growing up in a very undiverse world to just wanting the complete opposite of that now. So I think if I could, you know, design a space for myself, it would be a much more diverse one, because the problem with our country right now is everybody is in their own bubble. Especially in middle of America, people only listen to people with their point of view. They're only around people that are just like them. And that breeds more hate, because then they're raising children to think like that too. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. So for children to grow up in a more diverse space creates better human beings.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad I get to share this journey with you, because I say this often, but sharing space with you I'm grateful for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having
and
me.
Tell everyone what you're doing now that you're working on so many fucking projects at this point. I can't say anything, but there's a lot of cool things coming out.
One show that I have announced, it's a show called Strikers. It is a sports comedy.
Hey.
It is about cricket, which, did you know that after European football, I'm saying football.
It's huge.
Cricket is the second largest sport on the planet.
Just not here, but yes, huge.
Yeah, it's starting to be here though. 400 new leagues have come in the US in the last couple of years alone. So cricket is coming.
It's coming.
But cricket is a huge sport. So, I mean, I hate to compare a show to another show, but just kind of to give you the kind of like Ted Lasso, but for cricket. You know, a good, warm-hearted sports comedy. We have some amazing writers on it. Two of the writers from The Real O'Neills and from Fresh Off the Boat.
Oh, wow.
We just finished our pilot with Josh and Jonathan. So it's a very diverse show. As of now, I think I am the only white person on the cast. I was looking through the cast the other night, and I was like, I'm the only white person here. There will be more team members cast on that are on the cricket teams. That there will be, but I play a sports agent, and it's just going to be a really feel good show.
We need that.
Yeah,
we really
need it, and I'm excited. You know, obviously, this will be kind of my first time acting. I've done a little bit of acting. It's funny. I did a guest appearance on Alexa and Katie once years ago, and I was supposed to be playing myself, which I was like, oh, how easy will that be? I'm playing myself. But then I get there and I'm like, who am I? Wait, but who am I? And I'm like, wait, no, playing yourself, especially
it's hard,
especially playing yourself and not like on Queer Eye, I play myself, but I'm also, everything that comes out of my mouth, I'm deciding what comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So it really is me. But when you're acting on a show as yourself, you're still,
there's lines.
The lines are still written by the writers. And so I was like, especially like a lot of the lines that were written, I'm like, this isn't me. But then I'm like, well, it was really fucked with my head to just be you. And I'm like, but who am I?
Oh my God.
So it's not my first time acting, but it is my first time acting as a character outside of, you know, High School Musicals and stuff. So I'm excited about that.
I can't wait to watch. You're going to be great.
Thank you.
The first of many, I hope.
And then there's some design shows that will be announced soon as well. There's a game show I'm working on right now, which has been a dream of mine forever. I've wanted to host a game show for so long.
Oh, you'd be so good at this.
No one knows about that yet, but it's not for sure yet, but we'll put it out there. It's gonna be.
Put it out in the universe.
I'm really diving back into the deep end.
That's good though. Yeah. We need you back.
Thanks.
I want to see your face all over the place. I feel like it's when I'm at home. So tell everyone where they can find you.
So my Instagram's at Bobby, my TikTok's at Bobby, Threads at Bobby. Everything is just at Bobby.
Okay. Well, it's so good to see you, Bobby. Thank you for coming on the show. I adore you, and I can't wait for what's next. Everyone go check out Bobby on social channels and your new show coming out. When is it coming out? Do you even know when it's coming out?
We were going to be shooting it this summer.
Okay.
But there is another show that I haven't been able to announce yet.
So you're busy.
Was in negotiations before that is taken precedence. So we won't be filming it until next year now.
Okay. But it's coming.
It's coming. But yeah, so since we're filming it next year, it's probably going to be out like early 2027.
Okay, got it.
You know how the biz works.
I sure do.
It'll be out in 34.
Yeah, I'm learning in real time.
Yeah, so best case scenario, early 2027.
Great. Well, it's so good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. And we will see everyone next week on another episode of Wide Open with Ashlyn.